Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
You could mark your attendance.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to screen share mode. So you're able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
So in the last class, we had derived the transfer function of armature controlled brushless DC, brush type DC torque motor. And this was the closed loop block diagram. Both the electrical parts as well as the mechanical parts are modeled. Today, we'll go into more details of the modeling. The first portion, we would like to see the static characterization, that is the speed torque characteristics of the electromechanical model. Based on our model, we can draw the electromechanical actuator like this. EA represent the voltage applied across the armature. EB is the back EMF. The difference is applied across the armature winding of resistance RA, which will produce a current of IA, armature current, that when multiplied by KT gives the torque TM. So this much portion is the motor torque generation portion. The input to the motor as variable. One is the applied voltage across the armature. Another is the shaft angular velocity. Given this shaft angular velocity omega m and the applied voltage across the armature, it produces the torque Tm. So you can consider motor as a two inputs single output system, whereas one input is an external input, is a voltage input. Another input is an internal variable, that is the speed of the rotor, that will provide a torque Tm. And once you give this torque Tm to the shaft now should be considered as a mechanical portion. It is having a moment of inertia Jm and viscous damping at the bearing Dm. That will produce for a given Tm, it will produce an omega m, and further integration will give theta m. So this is the mechanical portion. So if you would like to characterize the motor, you can draw this particular equation. That is Tm is equal to Ea minus Kb omega m into Kt by Ra, which can be split as Kt by Ra into Ea minus Kt Kb by Ra omega m. So the input here is external input is Ea and omega is the internal input, and the output is equal to Tm. How we can draw this? Here in an XY plot, this one axis is the speed, another axis is the torque, and EA is taken as a constant here, and we vary the value of EA. If you look at this line, this is equation of a line, like y is equal to mx plus c, like that you can see. In the x variable, the independent variable here it is omega m, and Tm is the output variable. So this is the axis called omega m axis. Okay. And this axis is the torque axis. And this omega and EA into KT by RA, the total thing will come as the offset. That is y is equal to mx plus a. If you are writing here, y is coming here. This is the slope m, and this is the x variable, and this is the total thing is the constant. So the slope is here minus kt kb by ra, which is negative. That is why lines are having negative slope. And the value of EA when you are varying from maximum to minimum. What is the maximum value of the armature voltage? You can give up to the plus supply voltage of the power amplifier. That is plus Vs. And minimum value of EA is the minus value of the supply voltage. If you are using a PWM sort of amplifier, the H-type configuration of PWM will ensure, even though you are giving 0 and plus supply, say plus 50 volt, for example, 0 to plus 50 volt, if you are giving as a supply voltage, then the H-type configuration of PWM amplifier ensure that the effective DC voltage applied across the armature can change from plus 50 volt to minus 50 volt by way of switching the direction of current, positive way and negative way. That possibility is there. That is why Vs EA, this EA can take a maximum value of Vs and a minimum value of here minus Vs. And while you are varying this value of EA plus Vs to minus Vs, effectively you are changing the intercept C, total C. That is KT by RA into EA. You are varying from KT by RA into plus Vs to KT by RA into minus Vs. Thus, the offset is changing from the maximum condition. This is the maximum offset to the minimum offset. Minimum offset is negative. And the slope is always negative, which is given by minus KT KB by RA. And as you vary omega m along this line, there is a corresponding variation of the torque Tm. And this is called the speed torque characteristics of a armature control brushless brush type DC torque motor. And this is one of the very important characteristics while you are selecting the motor. During our lab simulation study, for a given parameter values of KT, KB, and RA, as well as for different values of ES, we will be plotting this speed torque characteristics and see that how it is working. These speed torque characteristics have 4 quadrants in this speed torque plane. First quadrant, second, third, and fourth. One important observation here is, if you take first quadrant and third quadrant, the product of speed and torque is positive. This is positive. Here also it is positive. That is speed into torque. What is the mean? Speed into torque for a motor? It is a mechanical power delivery.
Power.
Yeah, it's a mechanical power delivery. So motor gives a positive power output, means it is working like a motor. That's the meaning of that. The input is electrical power, output is mechanical power, and this first and third quadrant we are getting positive mechanical power from the motor. So motor act like a motor. That's the meaning. But when you come to this second and fourth quadrant, you will see that the product of speed and torque is negative here. Here also the product of speed and torque is negative. That means we are giving mechanical power into the that particular device. What does it mean? the motor is acting like a generator. It works as a generator. It absorbs mechanical power, then definitely it produces electrical power. That's the meaning of that. So the device remains same here, but it can function either as motor or generator, but the equations are same, speed torque characteristics are also same. Any doubts so far? There are two important parameters of the motor with respect to speed torque characteristics. One parameter is this point. I have marked as an arrow here. This is called no load speed. And another parameter here is called stall torque. It has got two physical meaning. Stall torque is nothing but stalling means keeping stationary. We are arresting the motion of the rotor. While we arrest the motion of the motor, it gives the maximum torque. Why? This is the torque equation, and you can see that as the speed increases, this is producing a reduction in torque, that can be understood like this. We are applying a voltage here across the armature. When it is having a finite speed, omega m, it will produce a back EMF, and the back EMF opposes the very cause producing it. That is a Lenz's law. That means the effective voltage across the armature will be less, which is EA minus EB. And hence the current passing through the armature is less, and hence the torque produced by the armature is less, because torque is proportional to the current. But if we stall the motor, then omega m will go to 0, and hence back EMF is 0. The full voltage applied across the armature drops across the motor resistance RA, producing the maximum armature current, and hence the maximum torque of the motor. That torque is known as stall torque. That is, when you stall the motor, you get the maximum torque. In the opposite condition, if you allow the motor to accelerate, let the speed increase. Finally, what will happen? There is a point at which omega m into kb, the product, that is a back EMF generated, will be equal to the applied voltage, equal and opposite to the applied voltage across the armature, and which leads to a 0 voltage available across the armature resistance, and hence the current through the armature will become 0 and the torque will become 0. That is the point here. It is known as no load torque. That means, no load speed. At this speed, motor cannot support any load torque. That is the meaning. It cannot produce any load torque. But still, the motor will rotate provided no torque is required. For example, Bm is equal to 0. You assume that there is no viscous damping coefficient. Then the rotor is a pure inertial load. You know that in order to maintain a constant speed, inertia doesn't require any torque. Inertia requires torque only for accelerating. Thus, if in an ideal situation, using frictionless bearing for the motor, neither as friction nor as viscous damping, and no such damping related, and there is no spring load, assume. That is, the torque is required only to accelerate. Under that condition, the motor can continue to rotate with a constant speed omega m, even with 0 torque applied. Under such situation, omega m can increase up to a value where omega kb is equal to EA. You assume that omega is slightly less than that value, then there will be a residual voltage, and hence there is a positive torque which will further accelerate to increase the value of omega m. And this process will continue until omega m is equal to EA divided by KB. And at that point is reaching the no load speed, and that is a maximum speed beyond which the motor speed cannot increase while the motor is acting like a motor. You assume that omega m increase, say additional extra increase is there. Suddenly what will happen? EB will be more than EA, which will produce a negative torque. Negative torque will reduce the motor speed. So it will settle at this particular value. So this gives two extremes. One is the zero torque maximum speed point. Another is the zero speed maximum torque point. So any normal operating points will be within these two extremes. And you can say that this is the useful region where the motor can work. Because these 2 points are not useful. You always require a finite speed and finite torque. So the motor will operate like this. Subsequently, we will draw the speed torque characteristics of the load. Because this much portion what we are discussing now, these characteristics as the motor as a torque generator, how it is generated, how the generated torque is varying with various speeds. In the same way, there is a other counterpart. This torque is applied to a load. A load will consume the torque to produce a speed. So there is a speed torque characteristics for the motor load. That also we can draw here. It will be something like some closed contour. And this closed contour, as long as the closed contour of the speed torque characteristics of the load is lying well within the speed torque characteristics of the motor, then this system will work. But if for our requirement for the load is exceeding like this, it is crossing the maximum limits of the motor speed torque characters. That means you cannot meet that particular load motion characters, load motion profile. That's the meaning. Okay, we will look into this in more details in subsequent slides. Any doubts so far? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let us go to another part of this electromechanical actuator.
Excuse me, sir.
So far we have considered only electromechanical actuator without any gear system. That is directly the armature is there and the load shaft is connected directly to the armature. There is a rotor of the motor without any interface. But in almost all cases, almost all of the practical cases, we cannot directly couple the load to the motor shaft. For example, I am giving some typical cases. The position servo applications. We are now talking about position servo application. One case is antenna orientation control or gimbal deflection control in rockets, elevation radar control in aircrafts, then joint deflection control in robotic manipulator. All these applications normally require high torque and low speed. High torque means high acceleration requirement. Quickly you have to change the speed, but we don't require large speed. 0 to say 5 radian per second, that should be done quickly. That requires high acceleration, especially when it is high acceleration is associated with a high inertial load. that calls for a high torque. So what we expect from an electromechanical actuator is low speed, high torque. But normally electric motor produce low torque, high speed. Torque will be less and speed will be more. You know that the torque is given by kT into Im. So hence, if you require a large torque, you should have large current passing through the armature coil. You know the penalty of driving or forcing large current through the armature coil. There will be I square R drop will be there. I square R dissipation, heat generated in the armature coil. That will be unnecessarily that produce problem. So normally electric transmissions and all, we avoid high value of current passing through conductors. Instead of, we prefer high voltage, low torque power. The same thing is applicable here also. We require normally prefer high voltage, low torque as the armature driving circuit. Similarly, the other wherever the power amplifier is there, current is passing through various devices, etc. Everywhere we like to have low current, and hence motor normally produce low torque. Another reason for that is the current is converted into torque through a magnetic medium, and the kT is proportional to the, you have studied when we derived the expression for kT, it is B into L into IA, BLIA. B is the flux density in Weber per meter square. So it is the property of the permanent magnet to produce the residual flux density Weber per meter square. So there is some limitation for the permanent magnet material for a given volume. What can be the maximum the remnant flux density? There is a limit for that. Now, a lot of researchers are going on to increase the value of this B, flux density, but still it is not up to the mark. Hence, there is always an upper limit for the maximum torque that you can produce from an electromechanical motor, electromagnetic medium motor. But speed is possible, high speed is possible only to increase. When you increase it, back EMF will increase. And definitely if you increase the value of EA, the applied voltage across the armature, you can definitely support a high back EMF. So as a source point of view, an electromechanical motor can produce low torque, high speed, but the requirement is the other thing, we require high torque, low speed. So only provision is how we can change this by providing a mechanical impedance interface. Just like electrical transformer converting a high voltage low current into a low voltage high current output, just like that, a mechanical gear system can change a low torque high speed input to a high torque low speed output. And the most important parameter of the gear is the gear efficiency. If gear efficiency is equal to 1, the input mechanical power PI will be same as output mechanical power, but definitely there will be friction losses at that tooth of these gears which are getting engaged. You can always see that there will be some sliding motion between the driving wheel's teeth and the driven wheel's teeth. That will definitely produce some sort of heat loss, and hence some energy will be lost there. So the efficiency all depends on the gear mechanism that we employ. The simplest case is per gear you might have seen in day-to-day application. And there are other gear, because gear, when you talk about gear, there are Other parameters like backlash is a very important thing. Then reversibility of gear is another important thing. Flexibility of gear is another thing. So there are both mechanical rigidity point of view and non-linearity point of view. So many parameters we have to consider. And another is what is the maximum gear ratio that you can achieve within one stage. And another is the axis, the angle between the axis, whether it's a input axis and output axis are coaxial or there will be a parallel shift, etc. And there will be cases where we would like to change the axis direction. So that itself is a very important area in mechanical engineering. And there is another area called tribology, which talks about the accuracy and all. Okay, that we will not consider in our lab cases, but you can study it. And there is a very important gear called harmonic gear. It is a recent advancement which produces a large gear ratio up to 300 in a single stage, even without backlash. But its disadvantage is only it has some sort of flexibility. So everything we cannot get from a single component. We have to go for trade-off between different choices. We will assume for time being that there is an ideal gear, that is eta, gear efficiency is equal to 1, so that omega m into TML is equal to omega L into TL, where omega L, TL, they are the load angular velocity and load torque, and omega m into Tm, omega is the motor angular velocity, and TML is the motor torque which is transmitted to the load side. I will come to that. Desired characteristics of gears are low backlash, high gear ratio, low self inertia, good back drivability, compact assembly, and low internal friction. Back drivability means we can drive from the input shaft to output. Then there is a particular torque speed conversion rule is there. And if you drive it back from the output shaft to input shaft, then the reciprocal of the relationship T1 by T2 is T2 by T1. The same reciprocal relationship should hold good. That is called an ideally back drivable gear, but it is not the case always. Some gears are not back drivable at all. You can only drive in the forward direction. That will produce some sort of non-linearity. Any doubts on this?
Can you please say what backlash is?
Backlash is called play. That is, okay, let me see some. Okay, I will show by with respect to this. You have seen this diagram. This is a gear mechanism, but gear mechanism is shown only as symbolic thing. This is the area where this is the driving portion and this is the driven portion, and this is a simple spur gear sort of arrangement where multiple teeth are there on this driving wheel as well as driven wheel. And you know how the teeth are engaged. Let me, I will try to draw using this. This is going as a circle. This is the driving wheel center, and this will be the driven portion. And the driven wheel will have like this. If this width of this driving portion and driven portion are exactly equal, there will be some problem while it is getting engaged. It is not getting locked. It should, during the rotation portion, you know that this thing, this has to finally escape. This portion has to escape from this portion. In order to provide that, there should be some sort of clearance between this lateral clearance is required. Otherwise, it will not move. And the clearance will not be exactly ideal. There will be small extra freedom should be given. Otherwise, if there is some thermal expansion and some load deformations are happening, the gear will get jammed. But because of that clearance, what will happen is, if you arrest this, for example, or I can say this is the driven portion. This is the driven portion. This is the driving portion. Suppose we arrest this driven portion and trying to move this driving wheel to and fro. Then there is a free angle plus some say 0.5 degree or minus 0.5 degree. It can move before engaging to this mutual phases. In the new, assume that this is the neutral condition, and if you rotate like this, what will happen? This phase will come and touch with this phase, but there is a small clearance. Similarly, if you drive in the backward direction, this will come and touch here. This is the reason for play or backlash. So there is a angular deflection of the driving wheel for which there is no motion for the driven wheel. That is known as backlash nonlinearity. Clear?
Thank you, sir.
Now let us see what is the equations here. These equations are very simple. When two wheels are moving in engaged condition, what will happen is there are three equations we can derive from that. One is the tangential force while this is moving, what will happen? This particular contact point, this will move in this direction tangentially, and while this is moving, this also will move in this same direction. So you just see that a contact point, what is happening? The tangential force applied by the driving wheel at this point to the driven wheel is same as the tangential force received by the driven wheel, assuming there is no loss like friction loss at this contact point. The tangential force can be given as the torque TML divided by Rm. Rm is the radius of the driving wheel, and TML is the torque which is supplied to this wheel. For time being, you assume that this wheel is massless and there is no dissipation. Motor produces the total torque Tm, and Tm is partly consumed to accelerate its own moment of inertia and also to overcome some BM, bearing, friction, whatever it is. And the remaining portion only will be available for getting transmitted through the gear to the load. So the portion of the motor torque which is getting transmitted to the load shaft is known as TML, but you remember that TML is still with respect to expressed in the motor shaft only. And that TML divided by Rm will give the linear force acting at this contact point. Same force will be transmitted to the load shaft. So at the load shaft point, you can say that TL by RL is equal to, I hope you are, TL by RL is equal to the received force. So this equation holds good. Another equation is the tangential velocity of both these wheels are same. That is omega m into Rm is equal to omega L into RL. And third relationship is the circumferential distance traveled by both the wheels are same. Assume that there is a delta theta m rotation for the driving wheel and delta theta L rotation for the driven wheel. So the distance travel expressed by the circumferential point, that is equal to delta theta m into r. There is an arc length at the circumference of the driving wheel is equal to arc length at the circumference of the driven wheel, whereas these arc lengths are the arcs which have just in contact, they move together, and that's arc. Using this relationship, you can one more expression I will put. The number of teeth on any wheel is proportional to its radius, because the width of the teeth is same. Hence, larger the radius means larger the perimeter, and hence larger the number of teeth. So you can say Nm is proportional, number of teeth on the driven wheel is proportional to Rm, and NL is proportional to RL. And hence you can, this particular relationship can be converted into delta theta m into Nm is equal to delta theta L into NL, or delta theta L by delta theta m is equal to Nm by NL is equal to omega L by omega. Make use of this relation also. And assuming a gear efficiency eta is equal to 1, Pi is equal to Po, that is TML into omega m equals TL into omega L. Or you can say that TML by TL is equal to omega L by omega equals Nm by NL. So this is the relationship that we are going to use while we incorporate a gear in the electromechanical actuator. Clear? Let us now go to this combined diagram. That this diagram is an extension of our previous diagram. The previous diagram we have considered only this much portion. There is a motor alone, you remember. This much alone we have considered. And using this only, I have derived the speed torque characteristics of the motor. Now what I am going to do is omega m into theta, this is also there. We are attaching a gear, and gear is an interface between load and the motor. There are two variables for the mechanical interface. One is the deflection, another is the torque. Let us now, you know that there is a term called forward dynamics and inverse dynamics. Forward dynamics means if you apply a torque on a mechanical load, it produces motion. So the cause for the motion is torque, the effect is motion. So if you are giving input as TL and getting output as theta L, that is called forward dynamics. But we are considering the reverse dynamics. In order to, there are inverse dynamics to complete this loop. That is, we assume that there is a particular theta L is coming on the load shaft. And the load shaft is rotating and is attached with JL inertial load, BL viscous damping load, and KL stiffness load. So the total transfer function of the inverse dynamics of the load is JLS square plus BLS plus KL, assuming that the load is also starting from rest and with zero position, zero orientation. Hence, giving Laplace transform of TL as input, we get Laplace transform of the torque as output. And this is known as inverse dynamics of the load. So if you give theta L, you will get TL. Now only important thing that we have to attach this theta L, TL to the motor shaft. Motor shaft and load shaft are coupled through a gear. So this relationship will come. If motor shaft is having theta M deflection, the corresponding load shaft deflection is theta L, which is given by Nm by NL. And if load shaft demands TL torque, the corresponding demand from the motor shaft is Nm by NL into TL, that is TML. And this much of TML we subtract from the motor shaft. You remember this particular figure. This is the motor. This TML expression now we got. Once we subtract TML from TM, the remaining, that is minus TML, is used to accelerate the internal dynamics of the motor. That's what is done here. TM minus TML is applied across the internal dynamics of the motor to get the omega m. Now we have omega m into KB is back EMF, that can be completed. So this gives the total dynamics of a gear coupled electromechanical actuator with voltage applied across armature as input and theta L as the out. Any doubt?
Sir, can you go to the previous page?
Can you repeat once again?
Sir, can you go to the previous page?
Yeah.
Sir, how are you writing equation number 4?
Equation number 4, what's the problem? You understood these equations? 1, 2, 3?
Yes, sir.
1, 2, 3, if you understood, only difference I am making is RM and RL. I am converting with the proportional quantity. See, NM, number of teeth, is proportional to the radius because you are uniformly distributing equal width teeth over the driving and driven wheels. Hence, always you can say that some constant K into RM is equal to NM, and the same constant K into NL is RL. So you can cancel K on both sides. So you can write delta theta M into NM is equal to delta theta into NL. That's how, and this is one portion. Another is we already have the other equation shape. RM by RL is equal to omega L by this relationship is there. You take here also you can substitute that NM and NL for that, and you can get this relationship.
Okay, sir.
Sir, if I do not take same widths for both of gears, then how will it affect?
Can you louder, please?
So if I do not take the same width of the those gears on both of these gears, then how will it affect?
Not able to hear properly. Can you?
Yes, sir. Sir, in this case, we wrote that NM is proportional to RM, and that means we have taken that, as you said, uniform spacing. I mean, the width of the
Yeah.
it's the same for both the cases. But if I do not take that case, suppose if I take different widths for both the gears, then how would it affect?
If you keep different width, say width means the overall angular width I'm telling. There will be clearance will be there. So if you assume that gear ratio is equal to 1, then and the number of teeth on driving and driven wheels will be equal. So we will be making like that only. That is how. Otherwise, there will be, we cannot accommodate different width. If they are getting engaged, mechanically engaged. So you have to avoid play means that part will be same. You can see some probably some videos on YouTube for different gear constructions, and you can get convinced how they are organizing teeth width and all.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Now the extra thing is we are connecting. This much is only the dynamics portion. In addition to that, for control point of view, we are going to attach sensors to the motor. There are two types of sensors. One sensor is for sensing the speed. If somebody's mic is on, just mute it. All are requested to mute their mics. Okay. Now, omega m, the motor shaft speed, can be detected by connecting a tacho generator, and the angle, deflection angle, can be sensed by a potentiometer or an RVDT. There are different types of sensors. I think you have already, or you may be going through some transducers, sensors, instrumentation course. There, different types of sensors will be discussed for sensing or measuring the motor shaft deflection. There are different types of sensors, are the rotary potentiometer or RVDT, rotary variable differential transformer is there. Another is optical encoder through optical means. Then magnetic encoder, one is called resolver, another is called inductocin. So we will have different types of sensors having different features. And to directly transform the speed into an electric signal, you had used the generator principle. And hence this is called tacho generator. It is acting like a generator. Or on the same motor, along with the armature winding, we can keep extra winding, which will act like a generator winding without having an explicit tacho generator. So finally, you assume that there is a tacho generator connected to the motor shaft, which will give voltage corresponding to input radian per second, and hence the unit of this transducer is volt per radian per second. Similarly, the potentiometer provides a voltage corresponds to a particular radian having the unit of volt per radian. And these things are used for closing the feedback loop. So far, we have been considering this motor as an open loop device, even though there is an internal closed loop mechanism is there. This is an internal negative feedback mechanism which provides additional damping. It's a very important portion. Otherwise, there is no closing the loop. And this can be called as a mechanical feedback pattern through gear. That is from the principle of physics, it is closing the loop. So these are all passive loops. They are not active loops in that sense. That is, we are not connecting a sensor, physical sensor, and we are not feeding back. So let us now derive the transfer function of this combined system. That means what we are looking for is theta L as the output and EA as the input. That is the total thing. That can be split into two portions. One is you first concentrate the transfer function from Tm to theta L. Then we'll move on to the other one. That is, we are now considering input as Tm and output as theta L. This is a feedback connection loop where this much is the forward path transfer function G, and this is the feedback path H. I hope your control system class has started. Dr. Rajesh?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the H portion. And you know that transfer function from theta L to theta M is given by G by 1 plus GH. That is G is Nm by Nl into 1 by Jms square plus Bms. Is Nm by Nl into the S also will come, and 1 plus again GH. G portion is there, and this is the H portion, that is Nm by Nl into this portion. Then you can simplify it. Final transfer function for the motor portion with the gear coupled is Nm by Nl divided by Jm plus Nm by Nl the whole square JL into S square plus Bm plus Nm by Nl the whole square BL into S plus Nm by Nl the whole square to K. You can see a peculiar form for this. Jm, Bm are the motor. If if we are not connecting any external load through the gear, whatever inertia Jm and whatever viscous damping Bm. We are now representing this much portion with respect to the motor shaft. This gives the reflected inertia JL reflected to the motor shaft side. JL is the actual load inertia. While we are coupling through the gear, the full value JL will not directly appear at the motor side, but a reduction is there. I will say it's a reduction provided this is something quantity which is less than 1. Normally, for because I already told that our requirement is to increase the torque from the motor shaft side to load shaft side. For that purpose, we will be using a larger value of NL compared to NM. Assume that there is a gear ratio of 100. What does it mean is NL will be 100 times NM. So the square is equal to 10 raised to minus 4. So you can understand that the external load inertia is multiplied by 10 raised to minus 4 before adding to Jm. It's a large reduction. Similarly, load any damping is that is also reduced by this 10 raised to minus 4 times, and any load inertia stiffness that also will be reduced by the same amount. Thus, the reflected load impedance at the motor shaft is given by this quantity that along with the already available motor side impedance, inertia or damping, that will give the equivalent thing that multiplied. So whatever Tm, the first it will operate on the total equivalent impedance, that will produce a deflection of theta m. That theta m value multiplied by Nm by Nl, you will get theta m. So this transfer function I am calling it as G1s. Whereas this transfer function is called G1s. Now the requirement is close the total loop. That is what is given here. G1 is taken here. The remaining thing is KT by RA. This KT by RA will come, and whatever the you have theta L here. Theta L is multiplied now. In order to generate omega m, you have to multiply again by NL by Nm into S. Multiplication by S is nothing but differentiation. So theta L dot will get first. Theta L dot into NL by Nm will give theta m dot multiplied by KV. This is negative feedback. And likewise, we can complete the armature control system loop. And this expression for that, on solving it, we'll get KT by RA divided by J equivalent S square plus B equivalent S plus K equivalent, where J equivalent is equal to Jm plus whatever, the same formula. So this is the total expression for the dynamics of DC motor coupled with load dynamics. Any doubts? The next portion is how we can do the control action. Because in our first lab session, after some introductory class on MATLAB and Simulink, we will be simulating the linear dynamics of the electromechanical actuator with a 2-degree of freedom control. So far, we have considered class. Hello, I'll call you back. Class, I'm taking class. This is the total picture of the closed loop system. What we have seen now is EA into KT by RA into J equivalent S into B equivalent. Up to this we have seen the KTG KP. So we have seen up to this. And we derived the dynamics equation. Here one thing you can understand is all the gear equivalent, the load dynamics, everything is absorbed in this J equivalent, B equivalent. And we consider the output in the motor shaft itself, omega m and theta m, and the intermediate portions are all absorbed. That is based on this equation. We have theta m, EA, and theta m dot also is possible by simply multiplying by S. And all these things after solving, you get this KT by RA into J equivalent S square plus B equivalent S into K equivalent. That same thing only I put KT by RA into J equivalent S plus B equivalent. And K equivalent is now assumed as 0, no stiffness load. That is why K equivalent is not coming. And the S square and S. So you can take S outside and put 2/2. That is what I had done. I had taken that S square, one S here and B equal to S here, so that this will remain as a individual unit, so that omega em can be explicitly shown. And we have the KTG tacho generator connected and the potentiometer connected, giving the output. Now the requirement is you have to get a desired dynamics. If you look on this dynamics, there are 2-3 problems. One is we would like to have a specific dynamics for the denominator. We have to change at least 2 coefficients. Then there will be a scale factor problem, KT by RA. So we have to modify this. You have studied the Laplace transform operations. The roots of the denominator are called poles of the system, which controls stability. For a desired stability, we would like to place the poles in the left half of S plate with a specific natural frequency and damping factor. And also, we want to this be in some normalized form, so that when you give some step command, we will get the corresponding step output. This scale factor also we want to tune. This can be achieved. That is, both the shifting of the poles as well as the scale factor tuning, all can be done through closed loop action. If you want to do only scale factor tuning alone, you can keep an amplifier in cascade with that armature control voltage and do that. But we want to do, in addition to that, pole shifting also. For that purpose, we have to use a dynamic feedback like this. This gives a 2-degree of freedom control structure. 2-degree of freedom means there are 2 independent variables. One variable is the position, another variable is the velocity. Both are fed back, and we have independent gains. Omega m is fed back, converted into electrical and multiplied by K2. And theta m is also converted to electrical quantity and multiplied by K1. And in addition to that, there is an external command, and external command is with respect to the output deflection. That's why we mix them together and multiply by K1. So this structure is known as 2-degree of freedom control, because you are manipulating two independent variables and feeding back. As far as this structure is concerned, the command is called, this is a position control system. So the command is the desired value of the position output, theta m, motor shaft deflection. Normally, we give all commands as electrical quantity. How do we interpret an electrical voltage with respect to command? That is through, again, this position sensor scale factor. We do this interpretation. The equivalent command theta c into Kp is equal to Vc, like that. Because Kp is the one which interpret shaft deflection to an equivalent voltage. Hence, the command voltage also should be interpreted by the same scale factor. Otherwise, there will be some misinterpretation with respect to scale. That is why we use theta c is equal to Vc by Kp, or theta c into Kp is equal to Vc. So if you give a Vc obtained by theta c into Kp, where theta c is the desired value of deflection of motor shaft, that will do the job. Now we are subtracting. Otherwise, you can do one thing. You can put theta c here instead of Vc. In some of our simulant diagram does that. Then pass it through the same block Kp. Then connect it to this particular portion. Both are same, because this is nothing but Vc. That's what we do. But the benefit is, here theta c is coming, here theta m is coming. Theta m is passing through Kp, theta c is also passing through Kp. So it's symmetrical. But physically, there is no means to give a mechanical deflection. Otherwise, we have to connect a dial, and the dial should be connected to some sort of potentiometer, then a rotary potentiometer. When you deflect the dial, the rotary potentiometer will give the equivalent output, and the rotary potentiometer, provided if you are using the same rotary potentiometer, then there is no problem. There will be 1:1 mapping from the mechanical deflection command to the actual mechanical deflection what we require. Otherwise, we need not to worry about this. Normally nowadays everything is done by computer and numbers, and whatever the digital number equivalent to the voltage, then converted through a digital to analog converter, that will give in real voltage, and Vc will come. You need not have to worry about unnecessarily one component potentiometer we can avoid. But mathematically, this is what is happening. Now, this error is passed through a forward gate, here this feedback gate, and finally, you get a loop like this. This can be simplified like this. Same thing I had done. This Kp is taken the forward path. If you are using this equivalent thing, both this Kp, they can be pushed in the forward path, because the block diagram linear rule gives that provision. So Kp into K1 you can put in the forward path here with the theta c and theta m as the output. The theta m directly coming here, theta c directly coming, and Kp is pushed to the forward path. This structure has a beauty because this is a unity feedback structure. It gives a better interpretation. you are giving a mechanical deflection command, and you have the shaft deflection by the same unit, and you are directly subtracting, and finally multiplied by the scale factor, multiplied with K1, and this goes. Both are otherwise equivalent. Only thing, I did some simplification. KT by RA is taken as K, and J equivalent is written J, B equivalent as B, 1 by S, KTG, K2. So that further simplification is easy. This is a two-loop structure. First, we'll solve the first loop with this as G path, this as H path, and you get this transfer function K by JS plus B plus K, K2, KTG. And whatever the equivalent transformation I have shown here. And then followed by the outer loop. One very important thing that you should observe is JS plus B plus K, K2, KTG. What is the function of velocity feedback in this loop? You can see here, it is directly producing a term equivalent to the viscous damping, or through velocity negative feedback, you can increase the damping of the system. But this B is due to real physical source, but there is no such physical damping. It is a active loop. There is no such physical element here, because we are sensing the angular velocity through a tacho generator. There is no rubbing element. It is purely an active path. And here finally there will be amplifier is there. It's purely electrical signal. That is, electrically you are generating a mechanically equivalent damping. That's the meaning of that. So this term is an active damping path through negative velocity feedback. So the physical effect, equivalent physical effect of providing a velocity feedback, that is to provide extra damping. And after closing this loop, you will get this equation. You can look at the structure of this equation. The same coefficient Kp, K1, K by J. Same thing is appearing here, Kp, K1, K by J, and A square. Or finally, or you can equate this to the standard form. Omega n square divided by A square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square. Whereas 2 zeta omega, zeta is a damping factor for a second order dynamic system. Omega n is the undamped natural frequency, radian per second, and S is Laplace operator. By equating the coefficients of equal powers of S, you get two equations. B plus KK2 KTG by J equals 2 zeta omega n, and Kp K1 K by J equals omega n square. Two equations and two unknowns. You can easily solve out K1 and K2 for a required value of omega n and zeta. As I mentioned, this is a 2 degree of freedom control structure, and hence you can arbitrarily fix two closed loop parameters, that is natural frequency and damping factor. You can give arbitrary value, and that can be realized through the corresponding value of K1 and K2. So this is the simplest control structure, and design point of view also there is no complication. It is an algebraic approach for designing closed loop control, and this is what you are going to do in your lab class. So the lecture for the first portion is over. Now you can go to the corresponding lab class. Mr. Abhilash will take care. Any doubts so far? Okay.
No, sir.
Sir, can you upload the recording of the lecture, because few terms are new for us, so we just need to go through it once more time to understand it clearly. So if you can upload it by today or tomorrow, it will be
Can
fine, sir.
you say slowly?
So no, sir, actually, can you upload this lecture, sir? Actually, these terms are new for us, like some of the terms used in the lecture
Yes,
are.
yes.
So, yeah. So if
Sure,
if it-
sure.
Okay, sir.
I will. The video you are taking, already I have sent you the course note, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. I'm just asking about the video, sir.
Video,
lecture. Yeah.
video is Mr. Abhilash. You are recording
Sir,
the
I will
video.
upload today, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, all
Mr. Abhilash
videos.
will upload. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So I am stop sharing and leaving, and rest portion Mr. Abhilash will take care. Right? Okay.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
So your control system course is started.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So transfer function and Laplace domains, etc. You are aware of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You are studied Laplace transforms.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Then it is fine. So all of you are installed MATLAB.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So anybody is left with installation of MATLAB or something?
Yes, sir. As of now, is it fine if we can use the online version of MATLAB and Simulink?
Yeah, online usage means it should be some delay or some problem might be there. Online that would be little bit slow. So you
Yes.
all of you please install MATLAB.
Okay.
So only that MATLAB and Simulink with the control system toolbox and commonly used blocks and some additional lower part of blocks only required. Simscape and aerospace blocks set and so many things are there that you can skip. So only that control system toolbox and other things only required. Okay.
Yes.
Regarding this earlier what SR is taught or something is there, let me know by tomorrow. So we can start MATLAB coding and MATLAB Windows. So I will share the screen first and we can start these things. So can you see this window?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is MATLAB installed in this C drive here. So first you have to make a folder. That will be your current folder. This is the current folder. And that folder, whatever things are available, it will show here. So first you have to make it in a new folder. So you can go up here. So you can create a folder. New folder you can create. And double click on that. Then it should be your current folder. So whatever things you are saving from this MATLAB window, it will be saved in this path. So you can save it in any folder, C drive, E drive or any drives. Whichever drive you are compatible with, you can save there. But all the lab session will be there in the folder and you can make some subfolders also. Otherwise later onward some problem will arise. And this one is the home screen. And this is the current folder window. And this is the window for this called command window. So command window, whatever you are entering there, it will directly show there. So you are entering 5 as a input, it is showing as 5. So it is saved in the workspace. So workspace is the variables that are saved in the program or something you are writing, that will be saved in the workspace. So you can save a is equal to 5, then a also will be updated here. So in later, if you are entering a, that will taken from the workspace as the variable name, and this value will be showed to here. Actually, MATLAB is a matrix laboratory. So whatever you are entering, that is taken as a matrix only. So if you are entering a is equal to 5 means it is taken as a 1 cross 1 matrix. So you can use size of a to get the size, that is 1 cross 1 matrix. Size of a is 1 cross 1 matrix and the variable name is a and the value is 5. So in the command window, whatever you are entering, immediate answer you will get. And if you are exiting from the MATLAB, whatever things is there in workspace will be gone, and whatever you are entering here in the command window also will be vanished. So later onwards you are opening the MATLAB window, this won't be saved. So that purpose you have to use .m file. So .m files are script files. So in the home menu, you can add new script. So it will pop up here as a editor. So if you are having any other text editor, you can use those text editor to modify this one. And if you are using MATLAB, it is directly extension will be .m. Now this is created untitled 2. You can save it as some other name. So whatever name you are entering, it will be appearing here. So the name will be starting with a letter. That English letter it should start. It shouldn't start with a number. And this letter and numbers you can use. First thing will be letter and other things will be number also, it is okay. And there won't be any space in between that. If you are using some this robot parameters, you can either use robot underscore parameter. If you the gap is there, it won't taken as a .m file. So you have to take it as underscore or some other. You cannot use the gap. That is the simple thing. Gap is using, it won't taken as .m file. Or whatever you are saving in MATLAB, it won't take it. Right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So this is the .m file window and this is the command window and this one is the current folder and workspace. So workspace you can add second variable v is equal to some 2. So it is showing v is equal to 2. If you don't want to show this v is equal to 2, you have to put a semicolon. Semicolon if you are adding, it won't show but it will be saved in the workspace. Now c is equal to 3 semicolon. This workspace will be updated C, but it won't show in the command window. So now D is equal to A plus B you are typing. So D is updated. D is equal to A plus B, that D is 7. It is showing in the workspace here, but it won't show here. If you want to display in command window, you can directly enter D. So D will be displayed. If you are entering the semicolon, it won't display. Next one is if you want some command line. So a is equal to 5. So if you want a command line, you can use this percentage. So percentage sign you can use percentage a is taken as 5. So whatever thing is in the percentage, it won't execute. So you can if the program is very large, some variables or something you can name it as it is, or something you are using for later purpose also you can put a command command line. Command line is taken as percentage, and whatever you are writing there, it is showing as a command line. It won't execute. Any doubt is there?
No, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, what's the difference between new live script and new script?
What? Hello?
Sir, in yes, sir. Sir, in R 2020V version, there are two options. One is new live script, and another is new script.
Yeah,
So can
live
you?
script is you can directly type it there and immediate answer I think it will get. If the new script is this live script only you are talking now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that you can, the script file is you can edit in the script there, and this is actually MLX is the extension for live script file that you can type it, and this will be attached to a, if you are having internet, then that internet that these things something you can type it and it will take. So it is having as a MLX file only. So most of the time you are using script file only. Script file for entering the variables and other things. You can use the script file. Live script, yes, a live editor you are not using. If you are saving in some this server something, you can use live editor. And this function also there, live function and the normal function. Function also it is creating a .m file. This function at all coming a later part only. This script file is something you want to save it, that A is 5 and B, these commands we are written here now. So if you are closing this MATLAB, it will vanish. If you want to use later onwards, you have to save it as a .m or script file. So you can use this editor. This is MATLAB's editor. Otherwise, you can use any other text editor, Emacs or something. If you are using Linux, Emacs is the common editor, or Perl, Atom, or something like that. Some editor you can use, and extension .m you have to save. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So you can enter the sinusoidal command also, sin pi by 2. So the sine terms also it will take this, and this normal this pi it will take it pi. If you are entering, it is automatically taken as pi. So that variable you are using, you cannot enter this pi and other things. This is saved format in the MATLAB. This pi is saved format in the MATLAB. If you are entering pi, you will get the pi value. So pi you are entering, you will get 3.14. This pi is defined in the MATLAB. So if you want to addition, multiplication, division, all the things you can do. So A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 2. C is equal to A multiplied by B. A star B you can use for multiplication. For division, you can use A divided by B. So E will be displayed like this. So if you are using forward slash, the division will be A by B. This answer will be 1 by A by B or B by A it will come. This forward slash is using. So that is a difference between this backward slash and this forward slash. So one is A divided by B and this one is B by A. B by A you can write it as this one also. So exponential you can add this A raised to 3. This exponential you can add as it is. So if you are having MATLAB, you can try these things. So if you are having MATLAB, you can try all the things now itself. Any doubt is there, you can ask. So you are doing it or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We're
Yes,
doing
sir.
so.
Following.
Yes, sir, doing so.
Okay, fine. So others can please install MATLAB as quick as possible. So now if you are clicking who, this variable now whatever things we are used in the workspace, it will display. So now I am using A, B, C, D, E, F and this answer is for this one 2 raised to 3, the answer is came. So this is automatically saving as answer. So if you are using who command, the variable whatever things you are used still now, it will that is in the workspace, it will show here. And one more command is there, that is whose. It will show this variable value, size and bytes and class, it will show.
What is the command?
Whose, PHOS. So if you want to clear the workspace, if you want to clear A only, you can clear space A. It will clear the A variable. This A variable in the workspace, it will vanish. And who you are pressing, it won't show A there. If you want to clear all the things, you have to click clear only. It will vanish all the things in the workspace. If you are using clear and one variable name you are using, that variable only cleared. If you are using symbol clear, it will clear entire workspace. So now you can create a vector. So A is defined as a vector, and that vector is defined using a square bracket. So now suppose you are having 5 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to separate each vector by space, and you have to close the bracket. This vector will be saved in the A. So it will saving as A is a vector that having the variables 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can take the first element from that A of 1, 1. So A of 1 is 1. The A of 1, 2 is first row and the second element is 2, like that. This is taken as a matrix only. So 1 row and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns it will be there. So first one is row and second one is column. So it will show display the first row and second column element, like that only. So if we are entering a single line row vector, you can do like this. If you want to do a column vector, B equal to 6 semicolon 7 semicolon 8 semicolon 9 semicolon and 10. It is creating a column vector. So for a row vector you have to add space, and a column vector you have to enter semicolon. So it will be displayed like this. So 1 of A comma B comma 1 of 1 will be 6, B comma 2 comma 1 will be 7, like that only. B of 3 comma 1 is third element is 8, it will show. So column vector is entering as using a semicolon, and a row vector is entering using gap. So how to enter a matrix? Matrix of first row is 1, 2, 3, second row is 4, 5, 6, and third is 7, 8, 9. 3 cos 3 matrix. How to enter a matrix C?
By separating the rows through columns.
Yeah, like that only.
Through semicolons.
So 1, 2, 3 semicolon, 4 space 5 space 6 semicolon, 7 space 8 space 9. So this will be your C matrix, and size of C, if you are entering, it is a 3 cross 3 matrix. So like this only matrix is entering. You are having a row vector entering gap and column vector semicolon. So you have to incorporate those things, and you can enter this one as a matrix. So
Sir, what if I want to enter column wise, like instead of row wise, if we want to fill column wise?
I cannot hear you.
So no, sir, matrix, if I want to fill instead of if we are filling the matrix, no, sir. if you want to fill the matrix as column wise?
If you want to enter the it as a column matrix only.
Sir, no, sir. Actually, it's like if you're entering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it is entered according to the row, no, sir. Like first it is finishing the first row, then it is going to the second row, no, sir.
Yeah.
So what if I want to enter it first column wise?
Column wise, first column will be like this only. Column wise means like this. 6, 7, 8, 9. Like this only first column will come. Enter in the matrix is like this. First you have to fill the rows, then the columns. Row by row you are entering. That is the easiest way. These things, if you are entering like this column matrix, you have to use like this. Then you have to indent other things. This is the simplest way to enter a matrix. So the matrix operations, that matrix laws should be meet. And if you are having a 3 cross 3 matrix, it can be multiplied with a, what is the process? 3 cross some other things. That thing you should remember. And addition also, if a 3 cross 3 matrix is there, you can add 3 cross 3 only. Otherwise, you have to take some, if dependency is there, you have to use some other procedure. So there are so many matrices are there, that I of 3 means it will create a identity matrix of 3. If I of 5 means it will create the identity matrix of 5. I is the command using for identity matrix. For a identity matrix, you have to use I, and row and column you have to enter. So identity matrix row and column is 5, means 5 by 5 matrix it will create. And once of 3 means it will create all element 1. You can create zeros matrix and other things you can use. And next one is, if you want to take the inverse, you can use inv command. Inv of c. So inverse of this C matrix is this one. INV is the command using for inversing that matrix, and rank of that matrix you can calculate using rank of C. So what should be the rank of C? So
3.
yeah, rank of C is 3 because the inverse is existing. Then the rank should be 3. If the inverse value is not existing, then rank will be reduced thing. So what do you mean by transfer function?
Laplace transform of the
Mathematical model for a system.
Laplace transform of
output
Impulse
to
response.
the input.
what?
The ratio of Laplace transform of output by input when
That
all
is-
initial conditions are 0.
yeah, that is the thing, that this initial condition is equal to 0 is the major point. Laplace transform output to Laplace transform of input with all initial condition is equal to 0. That is called a transfer function. So how to enter a transfer function? That is next. So transfer function is having a numerator and a denominator. So the command using is TF. So transfer function of a system having numerator is equal to, numerator you have to enter as a row matrix. So I am considering a matrix 25 divided by a square plus 10s plus 25. The transfer function is, the transfer function is 25 divided by s square plus 10s plus 25. So this is the transfer function I am entering. So the numerator is having only the 25 is there. So n is equal to 25. And denominator is equal to, you have to enter the s term power in the decreasing order. Now the s raised to 2 is there, s raised to 1 is there, s raised to 0 is there. So s raised to 2 term 1, 10 and 25. This is also d also as a vector you have to enter. So n is 25 and d is you are entering as a vector 1 space 10 space 25. And the command n command system sys is variable I am using. You can use any variable. This tf is the command for transfer function tf of n comma d. This n is defined and d is defined. Then you will get the transfer function as 25 upon s square plus 10s plus 25. So the sys is I am taken as a variable for this plant, and the numerator value and denominator value I have entered. So you will get like this. So now I am deleting this 10s. S square plus 25 I want to enter. What I should do? Numerator will be same and denominator polynomial. You have to delete this. One 0 25. So that s raised to 1 term is not there. So you have to put 0 there. So s raised to 2 is there. S raised to 1 is not there. That is why you have to put 0 there. And I am entering this sys is equal to tf of n comma d. It will be showing us 25 upon s square plus 25. So the term is not there. This term is not there. You have to put a 0 in between. So if you want to modify this entire things into some s cube and 10s raised to 2 plus 6s, and this one is your transfer function, then you have to enter n is equal to something and d is equal to s raised to 3 s raised to 2, s raised to 1, and s raised to 0. So n and d are there, and sys is the transformation I am applying. This will be like this. So if the term is missing, you have to enter 0. If the more terms are there, can increase the length of the vector. So it should be in the decreasing order of the term. So like this, the transformations are entering in MATLAB. This is the one way to enter this transformation. There are so many ways to enter transformation. Those things we can discuss tomorrow. Those who are not having installed this MATLAB can install it, and tomorrow you can come. And any doubt is there, you can directly ask. So in the theory part also you study it, and those things we are doing in next to next week. So we thoroughly study those things. Any doubt is there, you can ask me. And whatever things you are having here in this lab, the report should be sent it to that mail ID I already mailed you. So all of you got the mail ID now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anybody is having any doubt in that mail ID, you can ping me directly in that mail ID. If you want to confirm that, you can directly send some text messages so that that mail ID should be known to you. Because I am telling these things because later onward somebody will tell that I forgot that mail ID and I am not able to send it, that some spelling mistake has happened. That is why these reports are not coming. So those things you have to avoid. So you can send some text messages there if you want to confirm it. So those who are entering text messages, I will note it down. And those who are not entering, I will, your class representative, I will mail him. That should be a good practice, I think. Otherwise, you people will tell that I forgot that mail ID, or else you will tell that I didn't put that on I, or some extra times are there. Those things you should avoid. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
that your class representative is responsible for that. Who is your class representative? Bharat D.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bharat is responsible for that. I think that Google group mail ID is getting all of you, or it is going to one person.
No, sir, everyone is added, sir, to the
Yeah,
group
everyone
ID.
is getting, then the doubts will not be there. You can text me a simple text to confirm that you are seeing those mails. First time only. After the first lab session is over, you have to submit those lab reports in that mail ID. You know LaTeX?
No, sir.
Yes,
No,
sir.
sir.
I do, sir.
So if you know LaTeX, you can enter in LaTeX and you can mail me in LaTeX format. The PDF format you can, and that should be looking good. So those who are not knowing LaTeX, they can study LaTeX. So otherwise you can use overleaf also. If you are new to LaTeX, then you can use overleaf. So if you are familiar with LaTeX, you can send the report in the LaTeX format. So report should be very precise, and whatever things I am asking only you have to put. You need not put so many things in the reports. MATLAB installation, Simulink. Yeah, Simulink opening, you can directly type here Simulink. So Simulink is there, then it will pop up another window. It is not found means Simulink is not installed. You can install Simulink. So you are using Rana Pratmesh, you are using
Yes, sir.
Windows system or Linux?
Windows system.
Yeah, Windows, then there might be some updates in the some .NET frameworks or something like that. If you are installed MATLAB, that uninstallation program will be working, but
But
MATLAB
it's not working. It's showing that some DDL file is missing
yeah,
for
DDL
everything.
file is missing means that
Sir, for
MATLAB won't work.
Simulink, sir, for Simulink also that pop-up window is getting, but after when I click some blank model or some other page, it shows that your DDL file is missing.
Yeah, DDL file is missing means